All right, my friends, welcome back to the comeback journey. I'm very excited about this episode. Special guest today is Rickey J. Green, aka Dolla Green. He is a recovering drug addict and alcoholic and recording artist. And on August 6th, he is releasing the single "Here We Go Again" off of his Face Off EP. We've been chatting for a little while now, and I really love the message that he's putting out to the world and his authenticity and his honesty. So I'm very excited to have him on here. Rickey,
Yeah,
you want
man.
to give a little
No, yeah,
backstory on yourself? What
no,
do we
yeah,
got here?
absolutely. I appreciate you having me, man. I think one of the coolest things that I've realized is since kind of like 2020, I've had Instagram for years, but in 2020, I decided to start like looking at certain hashtags like sober people who are like-minded to what I'm doing, right? Instead of just having an Instagram that sat there, I wanted to connect with people who were like me. And me and you have become like, I feel like real life friends on some Instagram connects based on some hashtags I was searching. So I'm embracing that. I think it's really cool. I'm really excited about all my new Instagram friends. Like, I'm in Kentucky and you're like literally across the country, and we're kicking it on a Friday morning. It's like it. How
Yeah,
cool is
man.
that?
It's
Yeah.
awesome. It's awesome. I've had a personal Instagram for a while, and I made the comeback journey Instagram last year and like wasn't super consistent with it until 2020. And then like once
Yeah.
2020 came, I started
Opens the
putting the
door.
work in, and I was like, oh, there's like all these people, all these cool people. Like I've had people on this podcast from India and Dubai and Sweden, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is so cool, you
Yeah.
know? And there's, a lot of those are just not like one and done, but like we connect for a little bit, we talk, we record a podcast, and then like it doesn't go a whole lot further than that.
Yeah.
But this is like we've been talking already, like we're, you asked me to join or to follow your page and your music, and to see if I could support in some way what you're doing, and I was all for it. So I'm really excited to do this and to
Yeah. I
see
appreciate it.
what's coming for the future.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, we're both on the same journey. It's the comeback journey, right? We're
That's
both
right.
doing the same thing. We're on the same path. So, like, that's what it's really about to me. Like, the music is going to. Do you realize how impossible it is to make your way into the music industry? And then when you add being a white rapper on top of that, right? It's like not. It's bro, just hang it up, right?
Hmm.
But when you like, that's the reason I'm doing. Like, so I live this comeback journey, right? So what I've done is I've incorporated what I live into my music and made them one, right? So now I'm connecting with people through my music, through my creative outlet, that our real lives line up, right? It's not a stage character. That's what Face Off's about, right? Authenticity. So I love the fact that, like you said, I know a lot of those are like you interview them and it's over, but that's what I'm creating is connections. Like, me and you, we're on the same comeback journey, right? Across the world. We'll stay connected. You get to like watch what happens with the music. I get to watch what happens with your podcast, and we both get to like just be a part of each other's journey, man. Like, and that's what this is all about to me. Like, how fire is that?
Yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And we, like 10 years ago, this would not have been possible, or
Right.
maybe it would have been, but it would have been way more difficult.
Yeah,
So we're in a very unique time in the world.
for sure.
So you're in Kentucky. Did you grow up in Kentucky?
Yeah, I'm in Louisville, Kentucky now, but I grew up it's a small town south of here called Bowling Green.
Bowling
And
Green.
you can probably hear it in my voice, right? I probably sound like a hillbilly. I don't realize it until I hear myself. I'm like, God. But yeah, so I'm from the country, but I kind of live in the city part of Kentucky right now.
Okay. So growing up, like, did you have any siblings? Are your parents still around?
Mom and dad are both still alive. No, I was an only child. Mom and dad divorced when I was like 5. And so mom raised me, and dad didn't really come around much at all because he might be one of us. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, so I don't know how far I'm supposed to take that answer, so I'll let you guide it, right? But yeah, so basically, I'm from Bowling Green. At 5, mom and dad divorced, and it was me and mom, like, from then on.
Okay. My story is somewhat similar.
Yeah.
I have 2 brothers. I'm the middle child, but my parents, they split up when I was like 11, and then shortly after that, my dad moved back to Illinois. Both my parents are from Illinois, so my dad moved back there, and he was kind of a lot more out than in.
Yeah.
For years. So somewhat similar background.
Yeah.
So when it just became you and your mom, what was that dynamic like? Like, did you guys get along while you were growing up? Did you have a close
Yeah, like
relationship?
that's the textbook version of a trauma bond, right? So me and mom were super broke, and we went from the projects to the trailer park. We lived in a trailer park and a mobile home park. We were poor, ramen noodles, mom took that to, so here's kind of the dynamic to answer the question. So mom had this idea that she was going to get married and have a baby and have a white picket fence and have that dream. And her and dad, that didn't work. So in her mind, dad took that dream from her. So she was very bitter, very salty, very resentful, and has trouble letting go of things. So, from 5 on, it was me and mom, and I understood from 5 on that we were in a pretty crappy situation, that my dad was the reason for every bit of it. And, I started learning things about life very early on, that, being poor sucked. So, money was the solution to that problem, right? And so mom tried to recreate that. That dream that got snatched from her, she tried to recreate that because she had her and the kid, so she just needed, a dad in that role. So she pursued trying to fill that role, and she was, she would find those men at bars, and she would have, a fling and a relationship, and, every 6 weeks or 6 months, whatever the case may be, he would cheat on her. And he'd be gone, and it'd be me and mom again. And mom is depressed, right? So she's very depressed. So she's breaking down, and I'm telling her it's going to be okay, right? It's kind of role reversal, where I was making sure that mom didn't fall apart, until, hyping her up, like the next one's going to be better, right? So that's kind of what the childhood, that's the dynamic of how I came up, right? From that, those were that's the lens that I got to see life through. There's a lot of pain and hurt, and, mom would beg God to, like, kill her, like, literally, that was her prayer, was, please, like, end this now, I can't deal with this. So that's the lens that I was looking through, right? So by the time I don't want to take over the whole podcast. So your question was the dynamic, and that answered that. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute and let you.
No, I try my best to not interrupt people when they're on a roll like that,
All right. I can talk, so
that's a pretty heavy situation for a young kid.
Yeah.
How, like, during this time, are you, like, how were you able to balance that with, like, where did, like, school and making friends, like, where did that fit in while you were doing all this?
So that was really awkward, right? I've always been socially awkward. Like, it's weird. Like, I love being on stage and performing. Like, something else happens, there's another part of me that, like, just, like, I love that. But if I'm not supposed to be the center of attention and I become it, it's bad. Like, it's very uncomfortable for me. So I didn't really have a lot of friends. My best friend was in the trailer park. He was like my best friend. and in the summertime, right? But when school started, I want to share this with you because it created my personality. I withdrew. I learned about relationships, 1 through dad, 2
Mm.
through mom. But then my very first friend, they taught me about relationships and people in life, right? So Timmy was my dude through the summertime, but when school started, see, I already told you me and mom were broke. Well, Timmy's mom like had a college degree, and so he had Nikes, and he had good stuff. I shopped clearance racks at Kmart, right? So on the first day of school, when school first started, I don't know if it was the first day, but me and Timmy were close. It was like my best friend. Well, when school started and there was a crowd of our peers around, Timmy started making fun of my shoes and stuff, and like the whole crowd would follow, right? So Timmy was like, that's my dude. But then when we're alone, but then when we get with people, like this, a switch was flipped. And what I learned from that, I share that with you because that answers your question on what was, the dynamic. I withdrew from everything and everyone because I learned that if I didn't connect and I didn't become vulnerable, that you can't hurt me, right? If I trusting you meant you can hurt me, right? So if I didn't give you an opportunity, and this is 3rd and 4th grade where I'm picking up on how to operate, right?
That's a really
So
young age.
yeah, I'm still processing all of that present day, right? Like, because now it's affecting what used to aid in my survival now aids in my destruction, right? So I learned those skills in an environment where I had to employ them to survive. But now, from a healing place, that affects my relationships with my wife, with my children, with my peers, right? And in a negative way. So there's all new levels, new devils, right? So the more longer I stay sober and the more I look at myself, the more I see myself. And so that, I guess, to wrap back around to your question, I didn't do well with peers. I didn't really have friends, and also made it a point to hide my family dynamic from the world. Like, nobody knew mom and dad were divorced, or that dad wasn't around, or that, I tried to hide how bad life sucked as best I could. The
It's
fake
it,
face. The fake
yeah,
face.
right.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the way that you phrased it was so spot on. Like what helped you survive as a child is now aiding in your destruction
Yeah.
as an adult, and that's what trauma does.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it's these beliefs that we adopt when we're young, and they carry in, and sometimes we don't realize how much they affect us.
Yeah.
And being that young and learning about the world in that way, it's like that can definitely take a toll on a child. And
Yeah.
so
Go ahead. I was just saying that it was heavy, bro. And the first chance I got to escape, I did, and that's kind of what that set the stage for me to be full blown addicted almost immediately. Right. So because stuff was so heavy, like all I wanted to do was, it froze up. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I got the spinning wheel. But all I wanted to do was escape already. I didn't know that, but I just knew stuff was heavy, right? Life was heavy. It was hard. And I don't want to skip ahead, but I was getting to the first time I used, and I was going to start explaining that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like,
okay.
At what point did this incorporate into your life?
Yeah, so at some point, Mom met a dude, and he was around longer than the rest of them. And he had a shiny Monte Carlo, and he had a motorcycle and a boat. He was a baller. And he had friends. A lot of friends would come in to our trailer park home. And it would stink. They would go to the back room, and it would stink real bad. And then everybody would come out laughing. And I picked up on what was going on real quick. Well, by the time this was 5th grade, maybe, he was around from 5th until like 8th grade. So it was like the longest standing. Our best shot, Mom's best shot at creating that thing that was taken from her. Dude was cool. I mean, he was a good dude, but he comes from the same place we come from, or I come from. But So he was selling drugs. I picked up on that real quick. And by the time I got in 7th grade, um, I realized what he was doing, and I heard some people talking about drugs, marijuana. And so I knew where his was, and I went and stole little bits of it, took it to school, and sold it for $5 in 7th grade. So that was my first like drug transaction in 7th grade. And I want to share with you like what happened for me there, because I think it's really important. I'm not real clear on, nor do I remember if I'd tried it already at that point. I think I had. And that was the first thing I did when it comes to like trying or experimenting, was weed. But when I took that to school, so I grew up poor. I already told you that, but it was reduced lunch or free lunch, right? I would get 40 cents a day to take to school. Well, I always had kind of a thing with all the kids that were at the snack machine, the Coke machine. I hated them, right? Because they were better than me, right? They were, they reinforced, when I seen them, they reinforced my own insecurities. So I hated them for it, right? Well, when I went and sold that in 7th grade and I made that $5, I was in line at the snack machine and I was in line at the Coke machine. And I share that with you because like it was the first time that I felt whole, right? So alcoholism, addiction, to me, my understanding of it, it's spiritual in nature, right? It has physical and mental symptoms, but it's spiritual in nature. And to me, it presents as a void, right? There's an emptiness. There's a just overwhelming loathing, a feeling of inadequacy. I'm not good enough. I don't measure up. Those are the messages. So that's kind of how my understanding of how that presents in my life. When I was at that snack machine and I used that $5 and I'm in line, and not only am I buying Cokes and snacks for me, but also for my people. It was the first time I had ever felt better, right? Like power flowed into my life. Like it was the first solution I'd ever found to that problem I just described. It wasn't the first use that threw me overboard, bro. It was that first time that I sold it, and the power and the sense of control and the sense of just that I was okay. I was good enough. I had arrived, bro. It fixed me. It instantly, I felt like, okay, this is it, right? All that weight, everything I'd carried up to that point, I'd found a way, like, this is it. Like, this is how I get rid of it. This is how I escape. This is how I don't have to feel all that anymore, right? It was when I took control of my life, bro. I'd figured it out. In my 7-year-old, or my 7th grade, so 12-year-old brain, I'd figured it out, bro. Like, it's on. So the problem was that would, that filled me up for a day, right? And then there I am back with all that stuff I explained to you and no solution. So now my job became, I obsessively arranged and pursued how to do that almost every day from that time on, man. Like, that's what I fell in love with. That's what I first became addicted to. And it even talks about, I come from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it even talks about bottles were only a symbol, right? That's the point. Like, it's not about the substance. Yes, my body and my chemistry reacts differently than a normal person to substances. It's not about the substance, though. It's what the substance does for me, right?
Right.
So, and that same thing happened with the transaction. That's my point of what I was trying to get at, because from then on, that's what I did. And using everything came along with it, of course, which is what eventually led to my destruction for real. But the first way out, man, the first solution was that power. Am I making sense at all? Did I
yeah, 100%. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can relate to that. Because I sold cocaine for like 6-7 years, and for me, it wasn't necessarily about the power. It was like gaining the approval of the people around me, which somewhat plays into what you were saying. Like the people that were standing in line at the Coke machine and the snack bar, like, they didn't approve of you. And so when you got that power, you're like, cool, I'm here now. Like, and so I can relate to that. So when you okay, so originally you were getting like little bits and pieces from this guy your mom was dating, right?
Yeah.
So what happened when you said that relationship only went until 8th grade with this guy and your mom? So like what happened after that? Why did
So
you
by that time, yeah, so he had already had stuff weighed up, and I would go and take a little bit out of each one and do what I did. Oh, by the time he left, I had already developed relationships with older dudes for real, like, 19, 20, 30-year olds who, I didn't have, by then I had my own connections. I had my own, bro, I've been a businessman since that day in 7th grade, where I already had my own network of, I didn't have to, I don't know, man. I just naturally understood how to get it. Like, it's like I don't know if it's a natural born hustler or whatever you call it, but like, I just understood it was coming from such a wounded place in me that it just fell together on, okay, here's what I need to create for myself to be okay. And so I had to aggressively pursue who filled those roles, right? So by the time I was in 9th grade, like, I was a one-stop shop. I went to school early. I got to school an hour early every day so that I could, that's why I went to school. I graduated from high school. Most of the people I was around didn't. But so by then I had my own networks, right? So by 9th grade, it was full blown, bro. It was pounds and LSD and mushroom, like everything that you can name. That's what was on deck, right? And readily accessible. And I just thought I had it figured out. Like, I don't know. Then I didn't know what I'm explaining to you about what was driving it and all that. I didn't learn until I got sober and
right.
worked the steps, right? But so back then it was just, I was just in my mind. I was, I'm Tony Montana,
Right.
So that's kind of what that looked like.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to go through high school, having like your own little mini empire,
Yeah,
like where you are like fully self-sufficient in a way where you're like, cool, like this is mine, I built this, like how can I run things? And I think that mentality of like being in charge and running a business probably translates well to the adult world, but like all the underlying reasons don't. And so to be able to separate those two,
yeah,
that's a challenge.
yeah. That's absolutely right, and that's what yeah, it serves me well right now because like it's still a part of. I mean, I get to do that now, right? I run my own businesses I work for myself, which is super cool to get to do. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I got distracted, but
That's
yeah,
all right.
basically that's it still serves me now.
Yeah. So you said you graduated high school and most of the people you were around didn't. What did life after high school look like for you?
I went straight to, it was straight to a run in with the police. So basically everything I just described to this point, I have put in a lot of songs, but the most recent one's The Story About a Boy. I don't know if you've even seen or heard that, but The Story About a Boy is where I rapped just like a remix on Tattoos and Rap Music to Fuji's Ready or Not, that instrumental. So basically I put my story like in a rap form, no hook, just went in on it. And so once I was done with high school and even during high school, so what happened, I was 15, and we learned how to, because we were running around with older cats. When I say we, it's like me and my cousin and a handful of other dudes. We learned how, when I was 15, we learned how to manufacture meth, right? Like we were making our own. So at this point, when you talk about supply and demand and, that whole system, now we virtually had an unlimited supply because we're making it out of thin air. So from then on, that's 15. So what was I? A sophomore, I guess, in high school. So that was our extracurricular, right? So after school, that's what we were doing. But that is what started the rapid progression of the descent. Because that was up until that point, so let's talk about my hole, the void that I was trying to fill. Everything eventually, I always had to up the ante, right? So it went from where, making $5 at school, that didn't do the same thing for me it did the first time, right? That's why that's why I had so much. Like there was this, I was trying to scratch an itch that you can't scratch, right? I was trying to fill whole. So I always had to up it. Well, when I got introduced to meth, that was, bro, like it was the one, it was the thing, it was the end of all the searching, right? I had found it. Up to that point, I've tried crack, and as intense and heavy as crack was, it didn't last long enough. But when we figured out the whole meth thing, dude, that became the driving force of my life. After that, nothing else mattered except for having that. As long as I had that, my life was fine, and there was no other priority. But that's what started like the destruction. So by the time I was out of high school, it got to where like I didn't sleep. Like I would be up 10 days at a time before I would crash for a day and then rinse and repeat. Mm-hmm. And this healthy, chunky face, this is about 190, right? I'm 5'9", so this is 190 pounds. When I was 5'9", when I got arrested, and I weighed 115. So you can imagine, what I look like. So by the time I was 19, I'd been up for days, and we got pulled over, and I had all kinds of dope on me. Like everything that I had illegal was in my cargo pants. And that's the day I got arrested and I got charged. That's the first time I'd ever been in trouble, but that's also the last time I ever got in trouble. So I'll let you interject. I guess
so from 12 to 19, you were like building this thing. Mm-hmm. And then in an instant, it's gone.
Yes, kind of. So, yes. So, right. Once I got in trouble, it's like, oh man. Well, I got out. It was my first time ever being in trouble, and it was all trafficking charges. So I got put in drug court, which is a local. This is a good thing since this is on a large platform. So drug court here looks like you got to get a job. You got to have random drug screens. It's a diversion program to keep you from having to go do the 5 years that they sentenced me to. If I completed drug court, then I wouldn't have to go do that 5 years. Well, go to meetings, keep a job, stay sober, right? Random drug screens. That's drug court in a nutshell. And that's what I got put into. After I got my charges, I got released into drug court. And that's when the stuff I was building that you spoke to, that's when it reached its peak, because now I was sober and I could think clearly, and just getting and having and staying high on meth was no longer my priority or motive. Now it was get money. So now it was a whole new level. I had this weird ethical boundary, right? I didn't sell to anybody in the meetings, right? Or I wouldn't do it there. That's what really started the double life, though. And that ultimately is what, like, holding on and managing those two lives, the sober, I have a sponsor, I'm a good drug court member, and the dope boy. Managing that is what eventually like wore me out.
We'll get
to that in a second, but
that's tough, and there's got to be like that internal struggle that you were going through, like during that time. Like it's like self-betrayal, but on what end? Like what, like, probably you should be doing the drug court thing and being an upstanding citizen, but at the same time, this on the other end, like, you built something that helped you belong. So like, which side is the betrayal on at that point? Like that's an internal battle for sure.
That's a good point, the way you put that, because you're right. Like that was without that, I wasn't okay. Right. Without that, I didn't know who I was without that. So to let that go and walk away from that is absolute death. Like that's annihilation of who I don't know who I am. right? My entire livelihood, identity, and soul was tied up in that existence. Like, you know, so when it come time to like them talking about you got to surrender and all that, those foreign concepts, I was, you know, I was not feeling that. So basically what happened though in drug court was I never drank up until that point. I did, but just like socially, I didn't care about alcohol. It didn't really do my thing for me. I like to go up and down at the same time, but alcohol I lost too much control with alcohol. But I ran into a guy who was a third phaser when I was in first phase. And I'm like, what are you about to do? He's like, I'm going to get drunk. I'm like, whoa, you can't drink. You're in drug court. He's like, bro, they don't test for alcohol. Well, from that point on, I stayed drunk, right? Because I still had that, you know, that itch that I couldn't scratch, and that helped it. But what happened was I would do that. And then on a Friday, I'm a criminal mind. And I would figure out the random drug screens weren't so random. And so I would drink and I would get the idea. I had dope in my sock drawer, what I really wanted to do. So once I started drinking, I would start thinking, okay, there's no way. It's Friday. I know for a fact we're not pissing all weekend. You never do it on Sunday, and we've pissed 3 Saturdays this month. We're not pissing on Saturday. And I already pissed Friday morning. So I know now 72 hours to get what I want to do out of my system. And I don't have to go pee until Monday at 6 p.m. So if I start now and I do just a little bit and I flush all that I can, this 72-hour window, I could totally do what I want to do, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the thinking that led to me being terminated from drug court after almost 3 years. So I would drink on Friday. I would get high. And here's the torture piece, bro. Let me back up because I think it's important for people to understand, especially anybody young who's hearing this message. I was in drug court going to those meetings because I had to, because, you know, not because I needed help in my mind. Mm. And when I drank that night, that Friday night when I drank, see, I'd gone to meetings and I knew that once I put one in me, I couldn't stop. That was a rule. If you have alcoholism, this thing they're talking about at these meetings, addiction, once you put it in you, you can't stop. You're going to shake real bad. When you wake up the next day, you're going to have more. I've learned all these things. Mm-hmm. And I got drunk Friday night. And I'll let you talk after this because this is a good transition. I got drunk Friday night, and I woke up Saturday, and I remembered what I did. I didn't black out. Check. I didn't desire or need another drink that morning. Check. I wasn't shaking. Check. Now I know for sure, right? Because I was kind of wondering if I may be an alcoholic or a drug addict because I'm around all these people now. But now I know that I'm not. I just have to go do that to get through this process to get the system off my back, right? Because that was the test. I drank, and now I know for sure in my innermost self that I don't have this thing y'all have, right? And that's, you know, that then I was on a different level with it because I was on the fence. Do I have it or not? And now I know. Are you tracking with me at all?
Yeah. That's, you know, that's part of the reason I didn't stop for so long. Like the reason I didn't get clean and sober for so long is because I never had I've been hungover maybe twice in my life. And like, after like drinking an entire bottle of Jameson, like I'll wake up the next day, go to work, go to the gym, feel completely fine. I've never like had a bad come down. I've never had any kind of withdrawal, like nothing. And I could do as much as I wanted of whatever was around. And so I was like, oh, I'm good. Like, I don't like, there's no negative repercussions for me doing this. So like, why, like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. That was my thinking. So it's interesting that you said that, because when that thought comes in, like click, like, oh, I don't belong with the rest of you who, you know, wake up shaking and are hungover and like begging for another drink. Like, I don't feel that way. So like, I'm not part of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to separate myself.
Yeah. And even, even at the meetings, I couldn't go in there in my mind. I couldn't go in there and speak on that because then I don't fit there. Right. And then the gig's up. So I would dance this little dance. I had a sponsor, go have coffee with my sponsor. Like I was just this whole show, this whole elaborate show that I did. It's crazy. But so that turned into, on Friday I would drink, and I would realize that I have 72 hours. I would put dope in me. Well, now I live with my mama, right? So now I got high. Man, I'm higher than I've ever been. It's now Saturday morning at 5 a.m. My mom's in the bathroom blow drying her hair, and I'm like, I'm coming down, but I can't sleep. So I'm in that space where it's like, oh shit, right? And I think, okay, if it'll come out in 72 hours, I still have about 60 hours. So if I just flush way more hardcore, I'm still fine, and I would do more. Well, that ended up with Monday. Sure enough, I have to go pee. I go pee, put your cup in the window, and you leave. You pee at the courthouse, which is connected to the jail. So I would go to the courthouse, not knowing if today was the day. So if they find out, I know that I'm going to go to prison for 5 years. That's the position I've put myself in at this point. Choices and impact, right? So I check into the courthouse. I go pee in my cup. I put it in the window, and I leave. And the whole time on the way home, like, did it work? I don't know. Do they know? I don't know. Is this the end? Right? Like, am I gone? It could be. So I probably need to go ahead and get as high as I can, right? Because then I would go to group therapy there the next day at the same courthouse with a counselor who, if I was dirty, he would know. And we'd go sit there, and he looks around the room and makes eye contact with everybody. And I'm like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Today's the day. They're locking me up. They're putting handcuffs on. I'm gone. And he wouldn't say anything. We would go on with group. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to wait to the end of group because he's going to wait to the end of group. So I'm sitting there through group, and I don't know if he knows. Still, I don't know, bro. Like, I don't know if they know. And then group's over, and he walks out, and I walk out. And it's the most traumatic, stressful event I've ever been through in my entire life. Like, are you tracking with me? Like,
yeah, man.
God, it's so bad.
Like, my heart is racing right now just from, like, you telling that story.
Yes. Well, that is my life for the next 3 years, bro. I got really good at faking the screens. They never knew. And then one time I slipped up, and they had one that it wasn't dirty, but it was too clean. So they started me over in drug court and gave me like a weekend in jail. And then that would happen, and I would get it dirty. 3 months would go by, and I would get it dirty. Now they put me in there for 30 days. And a year goes by, and then they catch me again, and now I'm in there for 90 days. Right? They tried so hard to help your boy. Like they did. And so how that progressed, like, let's talk about progression, right, of the illness and the dis-ease in my life. Everything I explained to you about the empire and the dope boyness, so that was gone. Now I had that part-time job, which provided me just enough money to buy cleansing and more dope to use. I no longer had an unlimited supply. It was, my life revolved around getting high and faking drug tests. Like, that's all my life consisted of, bro. And hiding that, right? So it got to where it just wore me down. And my friend Dan was, I do have to wrap this up in like 12 minutes. So my friend Dan he was going through a divorce, but he was always at my house. And he was going through a lot, man. He was real depressed. And his wife and kids, they were going to be gone. They were leaving him. And Dan always stayed drunk on whiskey and marijuana. And then I just wanted to make Dan feel better. Me and Dan, we got high. I wanted to get him out of his head, man. I was just trying to help him. Man, I got him high. And the next day, Dan killed himself, man. And with my life to the point to where it was, and then my friend, like, that happened. Like, I didn't pull that trigger, and I didn't do that to Dan, but I played a role in his life that influenced that, right? And so that was mine to wear, and it's what broke, right? So then when I went to drug court the next time, they said, "Have you been faking screens?" And I said, "Yes, yes." Like I'm done. I'm done, man. And it was right after Dan's funeral. I reported. I told on myself. They terminated me from drug court. They revoked my probation, and they sentenced me to my 5 years in prison. And when I walked in that door, bro, and that cell door closed, and I climbed up on the top bunk, as sick and twisted as it is, it was the first time that I ever remember I felt at peace. It was peaceful, like it was over. Like, so let me make sure you're tracking with me. I get locked up 23 hours a day. I'm not going to see sunlight. I have no idea when I'm getting out of that situation. One of my best friends had just died. And here I am in that situation, not knowing when I'm going home, not knowing when that's going to be over. And that is what brought me peace. That's where I was at in my life, like that. And I had peace. Like that's, dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's when I started all the stuff, bro, from the 3 years that I've been going to those meetings and looking at myself and watching myself fall apart. That's when
So you were, when you got to this point, like you were in for 5 years.
That's what I didn't know. I didn't stay that long, but at that point, yeah. So right. I was sentenced to my time in prison. Yeah.
So once you hit that point, was that was like the catalyst for making that 180 and getting on the path of recovery?
Big time, bro. Big time. Because now I was away from everybody. I was alone with my thoughts and like, just being everything I'd gone through. And now, the drugs are, my head's getting less cloudy. I'm starting to see that like nobody really cares, right? I got to spend Christmas locked up. I got to spend a birthday locked up. And the whole time I'm wondering, and my mom asked me a question right before all this went down. Like she watched it get worse and worse and worse. And she said, "Who do you want to respect you?" That's the question she asked me. Who do you want to respect you? And I understand what her question was now. Like, I laid my life down so that the lowest people on earth would respect me. Like that's what I needed people that thrive in the gutter. I lived for their respect. That's who I wanted to respect me. And when I'm locked up and nobody's there except mama, right? Nobody else is there. And birthdays and Christmas and all this time keeps passing. I was only in there for one. I don't want to sell you on all my time in prison. I was sentenced to 5 years in November. By May, I got out on shock probation. So I was only in there 6-7 months. I don't even know what that math is, but it was enough, bro. Because I got out, I went straight to a long-term residential treatment center, right, where to deal with my drug problem. So it was the best thing that ever happened to be alone for that long and to think for that long and to realize the impact of my choices for that long and then go straight into treating my alcoholism and addiction, which I'd already been introduced to for 3 years straight. It was perfect timing, man. Like I was ready.
Yeah, that seems like the way the events played out.
Yeah.
Like that set you up for success long term.
Big time.
That's incredible, man. It's funny how the pieces just seem to fall right into place right when we need them to.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy, man. And And the story, man, that's just the beginning of the story. Like like when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. When I got to that treatment center, the dude teaching class was a, certified alcohol and drug counselor, but he was 13 years sober, a self-proclaimed needle junkie, right? Talking to me about, it said, frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices, right? The message which would hold my attention has to be one that has depth and weight, right? And this dude, that's what he brought. So they said an alcoholic who is properly armed. Hold on, buddy. I'll talk to you in just a little bit, okay? An alcoholic who's properly armed with the facts about himself can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic within a few hours. That's what I got out of prison and walked straight into. His name was Lee. Like, this dude was a ninja at the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was important for me because he was a needle junkie. But he was rooted in the program in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So he helped me realize that it wasn't about alcohol, and it wasn't about heroin, and it wasn't about meth, right? He took me straight to that was the first group that successfully started to deal with this thing. I don't know what you follow or where you're at with that, right? But so that's mine, is the big book. And it was so crucial for me to walk right into that with that man there teaching me the way he did, because I was so broken and so ready to listen, and he was killing it. And he was like painting a picture of me, and I'd never met him, so I was all ears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the reason I brought him up was because that's the dude who told me that this process has a way of putting you right back where you would have been had you never even came off track. Bro, that is my tagline.
I've never heard that before.
Bro, like, I'm 23 years old. I've just got out of prison. I just explained to you what I've been through, right? And this dude tells me that, and I already trust him. So it was on. Like, I'm like, okay, then this process is what I'm doing. And bro, like, here I sit. My sobriety date's April 20th, 2006. It's 2020. Now I'm married to, like, my wife's a nurse practitioner. You know what I'm saying? Like, my kids are happy, healthy, and I have a home, and I've successfully, God willing, if I'm sober for the rest of my life, but I've broke the cycle in my bloodline of trauma and abuse and addiction and alcoholism, because, like, that's what I'm set on, right? And now the Greens that come after me, I got 2 boys, man. They haven't grown up in what I have, right? And so I'm still talking about this process, putting me back on track. I own businesses that, like, allow me to build this studio in the basement of my house, right? This process, here's the biggest kicker about that. This process has a way of putting you right back where you would have been had you never came off track. Well, in my experience, this has catapulted me way beyond where I ever would have been had I never came off track. You talk about the promises in Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, we do not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Like, bro, I get that wholeheartedly. Like, I have no idea who I am if I'm not sober, right? So, like, every bit of that happened to me and that I was involved in, and the time in prison and the birthday in there and Christmas in there, is all to the good, because it catapulted me way beyond where I ever would have been had I not experienced addiction and alcoholism. So that's why we're talking now, because, like, so when I have an opportunity to speak to that to someone, because I've also been the dude who's homeless, convicted felon, walking the streets trying to find a job, knowing that $6.50 an hour is the best my life's ever going to be, right? And so when I speak on what I just spoke on, I'm not tooting my horn. I'm bearing witness to this process, right? To the known power of the universe, right? So, and then when you add Face Off into that, I don't know what I'm grabbing hold of over here, but, like, so when you add Face Off into that whole thing, bro, I'm using my creative outlet of music and these interviews, these podcasts, the comeback journey, right, is an outlet for me to be able to do that for people, right? So here's the big, I feel like you need to talk some, but here's the big piece that's in back of all this. One of my favorite passages from the book. It says, cling to the thought. It's in Working with Others, maybe, or The Family Afterward, but it says, in the big book. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, your painful past is the most valuable possession you have. It is the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them. So that's the reason that when I talk about Face Off, I get like, my eyes get a little wet. You know what I'm saying? Because like I get to do, like this is my mission in life, bro. Right? So for you to like take time out of your life on a Friday morning to sit down and let me talk about this and like to engage and connect with me around this, bro, like this is the most important thing in my whole life. So, it's fire, bro. So, and I'm about to, and that don't even, man, this, I feel like we'd have to go to another hour or more for me to really express the gratitude that I'm speaking on. But man, like, I need to stop because I'm just gonna keep going.
That gave me chills, man. That phrase that you just said.
The quote from the book.
Yeah. And
yeah.
You know, I was recently talking to somebody, and this guy explained to me, because I was like, you know, it took me a while to figure out like how my past plays a role in my present and like what I'm going to use that for. And he explained it to me. He was like, look, everything you've been through, all these traumatic incidents and the choices that you've made and the, you know, 9-10 years of like active addiction, that was your training.
Yeah.
To get you to where you're at now. And now you apply that training to impact other people.
Yes.
I was like, that, like, I don't know, like how I never thought of that before. And I was like, it was like something clicked, you know? And I was like, wow, like I get it.
Yeah.
I get it now. And I was already like, I just heard that the guy that told me that, like, this was just like 2 months ago. So I was already like doing what I was doing. And that just like fueled the fire even more to where I was like, okay, like the world needs more of that. People who have a story to tell that will guide other people along a higher path, a higher quality of life, a higher way of living. And that's what you're doing. That's what, and the song that you said, oh, I'm not sure if you've heard it before. Like I've heard it and I've showed people, but it's on your Instagram, right? It's on your IGTV.
Yeah. The story about a boy. Is that the one?
Yeah. Like I've heard that, and I was at my buddy's house and I was like, dude, please listen to this. And he had just like sat there with the phone next to his ear. And it resonates with people. It resonates with more people than you can possibly imagine. So I want to thank you for coming on here and sharing your story and being so open and vulnerable with me. And I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Yeah, man, I am too, dude. And I'm glad you're in the situation room, bro. So you got like behind the scenes access to this, and I'm excited to like connect with you over this and watch your, you know, the comeback journey grow too, right? Because it'll be kind of a natural progression of what I'm doing, that I'm going to be interacting with people who interact with they want to know about the comeback journey. They want to be on here, they want to listen to it, or, you know, so we're in the same arena, bro. So I'm excited to like get to grow with you, like, and watch what you're doing, because I know you said like this is kind of the segue into you're going to like redo your platform and how you're coming about stuff. So like I get to, you know, as much as you get to be a part of what I'm creating, I get to be a part of what you're creating. And that's what this is about, bro. Like it's Theodore Roosevelt. My last album, the intro to it was The Critic. You know, are you familiar with the quote?
I'm not.
I think it's a good place to leave this thing.
Okay.
So it says, it's not the critic who counts. This is the intro to my last Independence Day is the name of the album, right? But it says, it is not the critic who counts, nor the man who points out where the strong man stumbled and fell. The credit belongs to the doer, the man who is actually in the arena, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best, in the end, knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, that his name may never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat, right? So like that's That's what we're doing together. Like, we're both in the arena. It's just a different arena. The arena is where you stand outside of it and everything in you like trembles. It's like, oh my God, I'm about to be seen. I'm going to fail. They're going to talk about me. You know, mine talks about me. You know, I got acne from when I used to pick on my face all the time, these holes like that. That's all the stuff that comes online right when I'm outside the door of the arena, bro. Like, they're going to, you know, it's going to be bad. I'm going to fail, right? But what? It's not them. It's not them who count, bro. It's your feedback only matters to me if you're in your own arena, right? Otherwise, I'm sorry, I can't hear you right now, right? Because I'm in here doing this. So bless your journey in your arena, right? And bless my journey in my arena. And I say we just keep it going, bro. And like, I get to watch you get to watch me, and we can reconnect, because I'm doing this is just the beginning of this public process, right? So yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me on here. I'm excited to see this. I'm excited to share it. So whenever you know, get it wrapped up with a little bowl or whatever that looks like, so that you got it how you want it, I would like the footage so that I could create snippets and clips to like even build up the release of this interview, because this is a part of it, right? This is a personal behind the scenes. Here's who I am. Here's what it's about. And I want to use the snippets of this to boost engagement, to build anticipation for the drop, you know, and the drop to come. I think, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We could do that. I could send you this and you can use it in whatever way you want. But
sweet, man.
I think this conversation alone was like, there was so much depth, and there's going to be a level of impact that people will resonate with. And as I said before, like, the world needs more of that. So I'm excited. Like, as excited as you are, like, talking about, like, we're in the arena, like, I felt that deep in me, you know, and I'm excited as well. So
that's fire, bro. Well, I really appreciate you having me, man. I look forward to connecting with you and getting this footage, and you know, we'll stay socially connected, and we'll keep it moving, man. Thank you so much. Okay.
Of course, man.
All right, man.
All right. Signing out, my friends.
All right, later.